Hi guys, what is up? Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kyra, and here on my channel we are all about real makeup for real life and real people. Today's video was highly requested when I asked you guys if you would want to see a look using both the ABH CARLI BYBEL palette as well as the ABH Soft Glam palette. These two were featured in my ranking my top 10 favorite spring palettes, and I asked you guys at that time if you would want to see a look combining these. I'm just curious how they combine. I have no idea if this is going to work out or not, but we're gonna try. And since this was in a favorite spring palette video, we are definitely going to try and create a spring look. So with all of that said, before we get into it, if you are new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you leave if you like what you see today, and then you'll be able to find the rest of my videos more easily on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday when I upload. So I think I first want to start things off with this shade in the Soft Glam palette, which is Orange Soda. This is one of my favorite warm tone transition shades. I just think it's such a pretty color, and I just want to really blow this one out in the crease. I am so happy to be using these palettes today. They are definitely two of my favorites, and I've always kind of thought, I wonder how these would pair together, but never tried it. So I was so excited when you guys got so excited for me to go ahead and film this video. One more little layer here and we'll be good to go. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Now we're gonna swap over to the CARLI BYBEL palette, and I want to go in with this peachy coral shade called Cindy. And I'm going to use the same brush, but I'm just going to try to keep this a little bit lower, more in the socket of my eye, and just really warm things up here. And you're going to notice that with this shade, unlike the previous shade, I'm keeping it more toward the outer part of the eye before I do much blending. And that's just because as I get darker with my shades, I like to keep them more toward the outer part of the lid, just so that things keep, it keeps the eye open, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say, but not very well. To really warm things up. Going in one more time on both sides, just a little bit more, and then after I get this shade on, I'm going to go back into Orange Soda and blend, and then we will move on to the next step, whatever that might be. Next, using a slightly smaller brush, I'm going to go into this shade right here, which is Burnt Orange, right below Orange Soda. And I'm going to kind of start this off in the crease. I kind of like to start things off on the outer part of my lid first, and then I will work the shade up into the crease. I just like to get the bulk of the pigment off on the outer part of the lid, and that also helps me blend any deeper colors that I might put on the lid afterwards. So if you're not new here, this will be old news to you. But if you are new here, this is how I typically do things. Yeah, I think that just really helped marry together the two lighter shades. So I'm glad that I didn't skip this step. That's the one thing I do love about the Soft Glam palette. And I talked about in my 10 spring palettes video that for me this is kind of like my staple neutral palette for spring and summer, because it has the means to make such a nice gradient in the crease and whatnot, because you can kind of see, sorry, the glare, You can kind of see the natural progression of the different browns in there, and that just makes it so much easier. It might even seem redundant at times to include like this middle shade like this, but I really think it makes all the difference in the world. And then the last neutral shade that we're going to take on the outer part of the lid and just slightly up into the crease is this one right here called Rustic, because the next place we're going is up here to Sultry. And yes, I am still hoping it's going to turn out as a spring look, but just don't you worry. I have some tricks in my pocket here. I'm thinking that Sultry will blend into this shade Rustic really nicely. You can just see everything just blends together so beautifully and makes such a beautiful gradient. That is why I love this palette, and then I love the CARLI BYBEL palette because I just think it's a nice little fun palette, but it's a little bit softer and springy versus some of my other palettes like Subculture or Jackie Aina. Love the Jackie Aina palette, but I don't really think spring when I look at it. I may go back in and add a little bit more of that Cindy shade from CARLI BYBEL, the real bright peachy one, but I want to get the lid shades down first and see what I feel like we need. All right, like I said, we're going to go into this shade right here, which is called Sultry. I do love this shade. I am so close to hitting pan on this shade Rose Pink in here. I thought that was kind of, what do I want to say? Kind of expected, maybe, like a shade you would expect to use for a spring look out of this palette. So I wanted to do something a little different by layering a few shades. But this Sultry shade is so pretty. It's always been a favorite of mine. I really like it for a one shadow look. And I'm just putting this on softly. You may see that I am using a pinched but fluffy brush, which is definitely how I prefer to apply my shimmers these days. I just find this helps so much to prevent any texture on the eyelids, especially when working with, you know, foiled shadows or thicker formulas of metallics. And especially if you have a lot of texture on your lids or more mature lids, try it out. You might like it. Okay, so maybe this will come as a surprise, maybe it won't, but my favorite shade in the CARLI BYBEL palette is definitely this one right here, which is Mandala. And I'm going to layer that over Sultry and see what we get. And I'm hoping that this will bring things around to a springy look. I'm going to use my finger. Changed my mind. I don't know. I tried swatching Sultry, and then I tried swatching Mandala over top of it, which if you've never tried that before, it's really fun to play with your shadows in that way. But anyways, I thought it looked pretty as kind of like a base shade, the Sultry underneath Mandala, and I think it kind of gives Mandala a different look to it as well. How many of you have both of these palettes, or one or the other? I'm curious. You guys were super excited, and I get so excited when you guys are so excited about a video that I suggest or ask you guys about. Okay, got my Mario Badescu facial spray right here, and I'm gonna pick some of Mandala up on this flat eyeshadow brush here and spray it, and then I'm just going to pat this on my lid. I'm gonna start on the innermost part of the eye because that's where I want the most shine, and I'm going to keep this wet application to the mobile lid, but I may bring a more dry application up into the transition. Too many issues, if you ask me. That is so pretty. I think I definitely will go in and punch up that peachy coral shade in the crease. I don't know about you guys, I just absolutely adore warm tones mixed with cool tones. I just think it catches the eye really cool, in a really cool way. I've got to admit, my ABH palettes are definitely some of my favorite palettes. I have shades in each of my ABH palettes that I own that I just wouldn't want to live without. And this shade Mandala is definitely one of them. I am going to clean off my original fluffy brush. Just make sure we don't have any deep dark pigments on there. I'm gonna go back into the shade Cindy here in the CARLI BYBEL palette. And I just want to kind of reintroduce this, especially on the outer part of the eye, just to kind of reestablish that warmth there. Boom. Oh, yes. I was afraid I would come on here and end up with something totally boring and you guys would be like, well, I could have skipped that video. Thought she was gonna do something cool. Hopefully this is something cool to you guys. Now for the lower lash line, I think I'm gonna go in with Rustic first. I'm going to use a very flat square definer brush, something you could use even to do like liner or something like that. And I'm going to do that about halfway across. And then I'm going to take Burnt Orange from the same palette. This is Soft Glam, if you're playing along. And I'm going to put this on the inner part of the lower lash line. Again, this just helps keep the eye open, and you certainly could skip the lower lash line if you feel inclined. I personally just, like I said, want to keep it interesting for you guys. And then going back into Rustic, I'm going to build this up on the outer V of the eye using a small, dense, domed brush. I just want to make sure the upstairs and downstairs are connected, as well as we still have a little depth on the outer part of the eye. And lastly, I'm gonna pick up just a tiny bit, again, of the shade Sultry, and just make sure that that's still present on the outer part, and make sure that it blends with Mandala. I think I'm gonna go into this shade right here in the CARLI BYBEL palette. It's Bowly, I don't know. But it is a pretty shade. It's a little bit warm. It's, you know, it's kind of satin, which I like. I think it's a little bit more forgiving for mature eyes. And you may not be able to tell on camera, but I have mature eyes. And it's just a nice subtle highlighting shade. Very pretty. So yeah, I think this is it. I'm gonna pop off of here real quickly, do some liner and mascara, find a lip, something with the hair, and then I will come back and show you the completed look. All right, we are back. This is the completed look. Are you feeling spring? I feel like this is spring. Maybe even spring transition into summer, who knows? But I'm very happy with how the look turned out. I feel like I got quite creative with the two palettes that we used today, and I'm glad. I can see other looks definitely combining these palettes, but like I said, I wanted to do something a little bit more exciting, a little bit less neutral for you guys today. And how I finished off the look was a brown eyeliner from Wet n Wild, as always. And then I used my CoverGirl Exhibitionist mascara today just for some long, more like fluffy eyelashes. Aligned my lips with the Milani Understatement Lip Liner in the shade Nude Entrance. She's on her last legs, folks. And then the gloss I have on today is the Fenty Gloss Bomb Cream in the shade Fenty Glow. And I just thought this was a nice warm compliment. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If there's any other palette combos that you know I have and you'd like to see put together and me create a look, I would love to do that. I used to do a series called Palette Partners, which I believe one of you mentioned in the comments. when I talked about possibly doing a look with these two, and I just, like, that did my heart so much good that you remembered an old series of mine. So let me know if there's any other palette partners that you would like to see a look created from. Thank you so much for spending part of your precious time here with me today. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, springtime makeup days, and I'll see you in my next video real soon.